Subscribe to the channel and hear even more exciting stories. I canceled my wedding because she was with her ex. 4 weeks later, she reached out. Throwaway because my real friends follow my main. Here goes nothing. I, 29M, was supposed to be married by now. Instead, I'm sitting in my half-packed apartment, drinking coffee out of a novelty world's best fiancé mug, and trying to untangle the disaster that was my relationship with Sophie, 28F. To outsiders, we were that couple. Cute story, good jobs, 2 cats, her laugh in my Instagram stories, parents on both sides already referring to each other as in-laws. We were the couple our friends called solid. We had matching aprons for Sunday pancakes, for God's sake. But, looking back, maybe we were always performing for an audience, myself included. If I'm honest, things with Sophie were great right up until the engagement. That's when the cracks started showing. She became distracted, always on her phone, lost in thought during dinners, sometimes even forgetting shared plans. I chalked it up to wedding stress, job drama, or just normal couple stuff. Every time my gut whispered, "This is weird," I reminded myself that no one's perfect, and love means compromise, right? If there were red flags, I brushed them off. The late-night texting she'd forgotten to tell me about. The way she got cagey if I asked about her ex, Nick. The guy she'd blocked ages ago, except his name still popped up as a joke between her and her friends. I convinced myself it was harmless nostalgia. Everyone has a past, and if you want a future together, you just have to trust. Or so I thought. In hindsight, I see how badly I wanted the fairy tale. The version where everything works out, where doubts are just stress, and the person you love is exactly who you believe they are. But real life isn't a montage of cute selfies and brunch dates. Sometimes it's a messy, complicated reckoning with the fact that even the people closest to you can break your heart in ways you never saw coming. So, Reddit, here's how my almost wedding turned into the hardest lesson I've ever learned about love, trust, and the price of ignoring my instincts. Buckle up. You know that feeling when something is off, but you're desperate to believe you're just overthinking it? That was me for months. A week before the wedding, I finally understood what my gut had been trying to scream at me. It started small, Sophie getting cagey about her phone, stepping outside to call her mom, and coming back looking flustered, those weirdly long silences at dinner. We'd always been the couple who couldn't stop talking. Now, it was like she was somewhere else entirely, even when we were in the same room. My friends noticed. "She seems distracted, man," one of my groomsmen said. "Everything cool?" I lied, said it was just pre-wedding nerves. But I didn't believe it. Then, one Thursday night, I came home early. Sophie's car was there, but she wasn't in the living room or the kitchen. I heard voices, hers, low and urgent, and someone else's, unmistakably male. My heart hammered as I followed the sound to our spare bedroom, the one we'd started using for storage. The door was cracked just enough for me to see Sophie, clutching her phone, pacing while talking to someone on speaker. Her voice was soft, softer than she ever used with me lately. She said his name, Nick, her ex, the guy she swore was history. And then, as if the universe wanted to drive the knife a little deeper, she said it. "I miss you. I wish things were simple." I backed away, blood pounding in my ears, feeling like the ground had dropped out from under me. My first instinct wasn't even rage. It was pure disbelief. Maybe I misheard. Maybe it wasn't what it sounded like. Maybe I could rationalize this away like every other red flag. But deep down, I knew. I'd always known. I didn't confront her that night. I couldn't. I just sat in my car, staring at the dashboard, wondering when my life had stopped being my own. By morning, the wedding didn't feel real anymore. Neither did we. That night, I barely slept. I lay in bed, listening to Sophie's even breathing beside me, going through a highlight reel of our whole relationship, first date, inside jokes, every moment I'd convinced myself we were meant to be. But the words I'd overheard kept echoing. "I miss you. I wish things were simple." By morning, my anger had finally caught up with the shock. I waited until after breakfast, when the silence between us had grown so heavy it felt like a living thing in the kitchen. I just said it. No warning, no lead-in. "Were you with Nick while we've been together?" She froze, mug halfway to her lips. Her eyes darted everywhere, but at me. "What are you talking about?" she tried, but her voice was thin, shaky. For the first time, I saw the fear and guilt etched into her face. I told her I'd heard the call, that I knew she'd lied. Not just once, but over and over, and I wanted the truth. All of it. Sophie started to cry, real tears, but I couldn't bring myself to comfort her. She admitted they'd been talking for months, that he'd reached out as a friend, but it turned into more. She swore nothing physical happened, just emotional confusion. But I could tell by the way she flinched from my gaze that there was more she wasn't saying. She begged me to believe she loved me, that the wedding was what she wanted, that Nick was just closure. I asked her why she didn't tell me. She said she was scared. Scared to lose me, scared to admit she wasn't over him, scared to hurt everyone who'd invested in our wedding. She asked for forgiveness, for another chance, for time. My hands were shaking, but I kept my voice calm. If you still want someone else, we can't get married. That's not how this works. She sobbed. I felt numb. All the trust, all the plans, all the little dreams we'd built, reduced to this. 2 people in a kitchen, surrounded by RSVP cards and a wedding registry we'd never use. I told her I needed space, and I left, slamming the door on what I thought was my future. I spent the next few days in a haze, like my life was suddenly happening to someone else. My phone blew up with texts from friends, family, even my future in-laws, everyone wanting updates, offering pep talks, or demanding I just talk to her and work it out. Nobody except my closest friend, Matt, knew the real reason I'd disappeared. For the rest, I said something vague about needing time to think. How do you sum up that level of heartbreak in a group chat, anyway? Sleep was a joke. I'd stare at the ceiling, counting all the things I thought I knew about Sophie. Every moment we'd shared was now infected by doubt. Was she messaging Nick on that beach trip, too? Was that weird mood after my birthday because of him? The little flashbacks played on a loop. My anger would surge. How could she? Then just as quickly, I'd be hit by waves of guilt, wondering what I'd missed or what I could have done differently. But the worst part wasn't anger or even the betrayal, it was the loss. Our wedding was supposed to be the start of forever. Instead, I was canceling venue bookings, writing apologetic emails to relatives, and boxing up a tux I'd never wear. The RSVP cards taunted me from the fridge. I left them there out of spite. People talk about heartbreak like it's a clean break, but the truth is it's a slow leak. I missed her, even as I hated what she'd done. I missed the little things, her texts about dumb memes, the way she always insisted on singing in the car, how she could make me laugh when I was in a foul mood. But all of it felt like it belonged to someone else's life. My family was furious. My mom offered to call her and give her a piece of my mind. My dad just said, "You dodged a bullet," and poured us both a drink. Matt was the only one who got it. "You did the right thing," he told me. "You deserve someone who picks you, every day, no matter what." I wanted to believe him, but every night, I kept checking my phone, hoping for an apology that never came. Making the call to cancel the wedding was the hardest thing I've ever done. Not just because of the logistics, though trust me, wrangling vendors and trying to get deposits back when your heart's in the blender is a whole new form of torture, but because it made everything real. It was me saying out loud, "This is over. I'm not coming back from this." Sophie tried to text a few times. Apologies. Explanations. Once, she even sent a playlist, like sad indie songs could patch the hole in my chest. I couldn't bring myself to answer. Not because I hated her. I didn't. Not really. But because I was afraid that if I opened the door, I'd let myself believe her again. I couldn't risk it. My trust wasn't just cracked, it was dust. So I spent the weekend calling venues, explaining a change of plans to the catering manager, emailing the florist to stop the peonies, messaging guests with a simple, "The wedding is off. Sorry for the short notice." Some people demanded details, fishing for drama. I ignored them. Others sent "thinking of you" texts or dumb gifts that made me smile through the pain. It was surreal how fast everyone moved on, like my life's implosion was just another blip in their feed. Packing away our wedding stuff was a funeral for a life I'd already started living in my head. The house, the trips, Sunday pancakes, the anniversary photos. I found myself holding onto the invitation suite, those fancy letterpress cards with our names joined together in gold. I almost threw them out, but I didn't. Not out of hope. Just stubbornness, maybe. Proof that once someone said forever and meant it at least for a while. After the dust settled, I realized I was still breathing. Still here. Still me, somehow. The worst had happened, and I'd survived it, even if the ache in my chest felt permanent. I wasn't sure what came next, but for the first time in weeks, I wasn't waiting for Sophie to fix it. I was done waiting for anyone to save me. The first week after I canceled the wedding was a blur. Every day felt like I was waking up in someone else's story, a story where I was the punchline. My apartment looked like a wedding supply store after a tornado. There were party favors, table numbers, even a cake topper in the shape of two foxes that Sophie had insisted was so us. Every time I tried to clear it out, I'd get hit with another wave of sadness and just leave it for tomorrow. There were a lot of tomorrows. Some people handled it with awkward silence. A few relatives sent texts about moving on and better things ahead, which mostly made me want to throw my phone in the river. Others reached out with stories of their own disasters. Weddings canceled, relationships imploded, second chances found. It helped a little. The only people who really seemed to get it were the ones who'd been burned themselves. Social media was a minefield. I spent hours doom scrolling, hovering over the delete button on my wedding announcement post. Sophie and I had been tagged in a million engagement photos, all smiles and champagne and #blessed. Every time a memory popped up, I'd feel sick. I finally archived the whole album, but the digital ghosts lingered. The hardest part was the mundane stuff. Canceling our shared Amazon registry, fielding polite, "What happened?" Emails from extended family, running into Sophie's best friend at the grocery store and pretending I was totally fine buying frozen pizza for one. My life had shrunk to the bare essentials. Eat, sleep, work, repeat. Matt made a point to check in every few days. He'd show up with burgers or a six-pack, listen to me vent, or just sit with me in silence. Sometimes we'd play old video games. Sometimes we'd just sit on the balcony, watching the city lights and not saying much at all. It didn't fix anything, but it helped me feel human. Every now and then, I'd catch myself staring at the door, expecting Sophie to walk through it and say it was all a mistake. She didn't. The silence between us grew, heavy and final. It was like mourning someone who was still alive. And slowly, painfully, I started to realize I was mourning a future that never really existed. Time is weird after a breakup, especially one as public and messy as calling off your wedding. Days bled into each other. I returned to routines that felt hollow, like echoes from a life I'd left behind. I worked. I ate the same dinners alone. I started running again. Anything to burn off the nervous energy that used to go into wedding planning or texting Sophie. My friends kept inviting me out, but I turned them down most nights. Not because I didn't appreciate it, but because I couldn't quite fake normal yet. I thought a lot about what went wrong. There were warning signs, sure. Her emotional distance, the way she flinched at questions about her past, my own anxiety that I kept calling insecurity. But I also replayed every moment I'd overlooked. Every time I told myself, just trust her. Don't be the jealous guy. I realized I wasn't just mourning Sophie. I was mourning the version of myself that believed I could always fix things if I just loved hard enough. I spent too much time stalking her social media, looking for clues about what she was thinking or if she'd gone back to Nick. It was self-torture, and eventually I stopped. Not because I had some great moment of self-respect, but because I was just too tired to keep hurting myself. Instead, I started journaling, writing out the story in all its ugly detail, getting honest about my own mistakes. It helped, slowly. The most surprising thing was how my circle changed. Some people faded out quietly, friends who didn't know what to say, who drifted towards Sophie's side or just got uncomfortable with the mess. Others stepped up. Matt, especially, became my lifeline. So did my sister, who let me vent and ugly cry over FaceTime as much as I needed. I learned that support doesn't always come from where you expect, but it does show up if you let it. Eventually, I began to see the outline of a new life, one not defined by loss or betrayal, but by resilience. I wasn't over it, not by a long shot. But for the first time, I started to believe that maybe I could be okay. That the end of this story wasn't the end of me. I was starting to find my footing, barely, but it was something. The sharpest edge of heartbreak had dulled into a low ache I could live with. I'd stopped checking Sophie's socials every morning. I'd even gone out for drinks with Matt and laughed without it feeling fake. I was learning to like my own company again. Then, Exactly 4 weeks after I called off the wedding, Sophie texted me. It was a plain, late-night message. Hey, I know I have no right to ask, but can we talk? I stared at my phone like it was a bomb about to go off. My chest tightened. I must have read that line a dozen times, feeling a surge of hope and anger and dread all at once. I'd spent weeks imagining what I'd say if she ever reached out, but in that moment, my mind went blank. I didn't reply at first. I went for a walk, circling my block in the dark, trying to untangle what I wanted. Part of me burned for an apology, for answers, for closure. Another part of me was terrified she'd just reopened wounds I was finally starting to heal. I texted Matt. She wants to talk. His response was instant. You don't owe her anything. Only do it if it's what you want. By the time I got home, she'd sent another message. I'm so sorry. I really messed up. I can't stop thinking about you. Please, just let me explain. Her words twisted in my gut. Did I want explanations? Did I want her back? Or did I just want proof that she regretted losing me? I sat with it for hours, rereading our old chats, remembering the good times and the lies. Eventually, I typed out a response. I don't know what you could possibly say to fix this, but if you need to talk, I'll listen once. After that, we're done. I hit send, heart racing. The next day, we met at a coffee shop on the quiet side of town. She looked different, tired, drawn, like someone who'd been living with regret. The conversation wasn't dramatic. She apologized. She cried. She tried to explain how lost she felt, how she never meant to hurt me, how she'd made the worst mistake of her life. I listened because I needed to hear it, even if it didn't change anything. When it was over, I felt lighter. Not because she'd said the right things, but because I realized I didn't need her answers to move on. Closure didn't come from her. It came from choosing to walk away, finally and completely. After that coffee shop meeting, something inside me finally clicked into place. I wasn't angry anymore, not in that seething, late-night kind of way. I wasn't desperate for her to fix it. I realized I was genuinely done waiting for Sophie to say the magic words that would somehow rewind the past. She'd apologized, explained, cried. I'd listened, nodded, and walked away. There wasn't anything left between us but the echo of what might have been. The days that followed were weirdly peaceful. I expected a wave of sadness, but what I got was relief. I could breathe again. I stopped replaying our arguments or analyzing her every word. For the first time in months, my apartment felt like my own space instead of a museum of broken plans. I cleared out the wedding stuff, boxed up the invitations, donated the cake topper, tossed out all the registry lists. It wasn't a grand gesture, just a quiet reclaiming of my life. Family and friends kept checking in, maybe expecting drama or a relapse. But there wasn't any. Even Matt said, "You seem lighter." And I was. I started saying yes to invitations again. Dinners, trivia nights, even a weekend hiking trip I'd always put off for couple plans. Life felt small but real, and that was more than enough. Sophie texted me once or twice after our meeting, short, polite updates. I didn't ignore her, but I didn't encourage more. I wished her well, genuinely, and let her go. The hardest part was forgiving myself for not seeing it sooner, for loving someone who wasn't ready for the same forever I was. But little by little, I learned to stop blaming myself and start trusting my instincts again. Letting go didn't mean forgetting or pretending none of it hurt. It meant choosing my own future, one honest step at a time. And for the first time, happily ever after didn't feel like something I'd lost. It felt like something I could build, just for myself. Looking back, canceling the wedding felt like the end of everything I thought I wanted. But it wasn't the end of me. It was the beginning of seeing my own worth. If you ever catch yourself explaining away red flags or settling for half-truths, trust your gut. Don't wait for someone else's apology to reclaim your future. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you'll ever do. To anyone going through betrayal or heartbreak right before happily ever after, it hurts badly, but you will survive. And when the dust finally settles, you get to write your own next chapter on your terms. That's real closure.